Alright guys, so today we're going to solve this quadratic equation for x. So the first thing we're going to do is use inverse operations to get rid of this one. So the opposite of adding one is subtracting one. So whatever we do on one side of the equal sign, we got to do on the other. So this gives me negative 2x squared equals 162. Now I've got to get rid of that negative 2, and when you have a number next to a variable like that, it needs to multiply. So the opposite of multiplying is dividing, so let's go ahead and divide each side by negative 2. I'm isolating the x. Alright, this cancels off, and I'm left with x squared equals, positive divided by negative is a negative, and this is 162 divided by 2. Alright, to get rid of a square, I'm going to take the square root. If I do it on one side, I have to do it on the other. The square root of x squared is x. The square and the square root cancel each other out. And then over here, when we have a square root of a negative number, I can't actually take the square root of a negative number because there's no number times itself that will give me negative 1 or negative 81. So what I'm going to do is separate out the negative 1 from the 81. So here this is negative 1 times, or square root of negative 1 times the square root of 81. I haven't changed the value because negative 1 times 81 is the square root of negative 1. But this puts me in a situation where I can solve this and get an imaginary solution. So the square root of 81 is both a positive and negative 9. So the square root of 81 became positive negative 9, and the square root of negative 1, we know that that just doesn't exist in real life, but mathematicians have come up with the fact that the square root of negative 1 is an imaginary unit, and that allows us to solve this quadratic. So this represents two imaginary solutions for x, and that's how you solve a quadratic with an imaginary number.